Next on Currents News, saying goodbye to George H.W. Bush. Leaders from America and the world paying final respects at Washington's National Cathedral. A lasting legacy of the 41st president is the American with Disabilities Act. Tonight, I'll speak with a man who helped write the law. Then, they all visited St. Patrick's Cathedral, and now these former popes are memorialized inside. We'll give you a closer look. Plus this.
I'm Tim Harfman, standing by in Queens, where Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio hosts his annual Christmas luncheon. It's a fundraiser for Catholic education and a time to honor members of the faithful for their dedication to the church. That story's coming up.
If you view life as, purposeful, and particularly if you're a person of faith, this is a time to celebrate George H.W. Bush, not to grieve his loss, and that's what we're doing as a family right now.
Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush remembering his dad on this day of national mourning. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. A day of tears and fond recollections in the nation's capital as a war hero, congressman, statesman, and 41st president of the United States is honored by those closest to him. Camila Bernal reports.
Former President of the United States George H.W. Bush is making his final journey back to his adopted home state of Texas. Following an emotional farewell from former and current world leaders at the National Cathedral in Washington, including all living and former presidents, as well as President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump.
To us, his was the brightest of 1,000 points of light.
Moving tributes from those who worked with him.
The most decent and honorable person I ever met was my friend George Bush, one of nature's noble men.
Those who understand the legacy he leaves behind.
I believe it will be said that no occupant of the Oval Office was more courageous, more principled, and more honorable than George Herbert Walker Bush.
And from his son.
Through our tears, let us know the blessings of knowing and loving you, a great and noble man, the best father a son or daughter could have. And in our grief, let us smile knowing that Dad is hugging Robin and holding Mom's hand again.
Camila Bernal, Currents News.
Pope Francis sending his condolences to the Bush family via the telegram. The message states that Pope Francis, quote, offers heartfelt condolences and the assurance of his prayers to all the Bush family, commending President Bush's soul to the merciful love of Almighty God. A special train is set to transport the 41st president on his final ride from Houston to College Station tomorrow. The company Union Pacific decked out 10 cars that make up the funeral train, dubbed Engine 4141 in his honor. The first 5 cars will be used by family and friends, 2 other cars for staff and security. The car painted with the United States flag will be the one carrying the former president to his final resting place at the Bush Library. One of President Bush's most lasting legacies is the Americans with Disabilities Act. The law prohibits discrimination against anyone based on a disability. Steve Bartlett was a key author of the law when he represented Texas in Congress, and he joins us now to talk about the legislation and the man who championed the cause. Mr. Bartlett, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for doing this. The ADA was a major legacy for George Bush. He was the sort of the creator and the genius that identified it, put it in his inaugural speech, and we got it through.
Now, many people don't realize, Mr. Bartlett, that President Bush did a lot more than just sign this landmark Americans with Disabilities Act into law. Please tell us about how he actually proposed this legislation.
Well, it was a crucial moment in time. In the 1980s, the Congress had passed a number of small individual disability rights legislation in education and employment and transportation, but nothing that actually provided civil rights to people with disabilities and independence. And so in sharing that with President Bush, a number of his friends on Capitol Hill when he was vice president, he took all that in, and then when he ran for president and got elected, he then put his proposal for the ADA into his inaugural speech. And when a president says he's going to submit something in his inaugural speech, that means it's really going to get done. And then he stayed with it all the way through and made sure that nothing got off track, and we got the legislation by June of 1990.
A true testament to his resolute character, I am sure. The rest, as they say, is history. Mr. Bartlett, we're playing a video of 41 signing the ADA. Now, during that ceremony, he hands a pen over to a minister who has no arms. Also, there are other Americans with disabilities. It really is an amazing image to behold. Why do you think George Herbert Walker Bush was so passionate about making sure that people with disabilities were seen as important members of society?
And that was why George Bush did it, to make that visual image that somebody with no arms still has feet and still has a brain and still has a capacity to serve others. So George Bush, just with that one action, made his case for moving forward and for independence for people with disabilities.
You were a Republican congressman from Texas at the time. Was there a lot of debate over the act's passage? Was it controversial?
There was a lot of debate because it's complicated. You have to put in a provision for how do you make a reasonable accommodation? How do you achieve technology? How do you make sure that the buildings are retrofitted without having to have everyone tear down their buildings and start all over? So it was complicated. And for that, we always had George Bush helping us, meaning he would be part of the brainstorming of being able to say, well, have you thought about this, and try that and stay with it. So he was both an inspiration, but also provided a lot of the education.
How has it impacted the lives?
It's amazing. Things aren't perfect in the disability world, but people with disabilities now have the opportunity to get a job, to have a reasonable accommodation, to be able to go to school, to have a mainstream education, to have access to health care, and all those other things that allow people to live full and productive lives. We've had a significant increase in the number of disabled persons who are employed, but they still have a long ways to go. We still have about a 38% employment for disabilities, and that's a big step up, but we still have a long ways to go, and the country is moving ahead on that front.
You were at the Capitol Rotunda yesterday. It was a special gathering of the disabled community to pay respects to President Bush. What was that like?
It was heartwarming. It was just amazing. The Bush family invited the disability community to come, Republicans and Democrats. It was all bipartisan, and it reminded us that George Bush knew how to solve problems in the public good without the partisan politics. There was not a dry eye in the House, and even Sully the dog, the service dog, got a special role.
Oh my goodness, we've been watching here as well. Thank you so much, Mr. Bartlett. I know you had a special relationship with him, so our condolences and prayers to you. Thank you for making time to talk with us.
Thank you for calling.
A break in the case of a Hasidic man who was punched in the head in Brooklyn. Police have arrested and identified the suspect, Enrique Garina, and he's charged with assault as a hate crime. The Friday night attack was caught on video. Two men were walking on Troop Avenue in Williamsburg dressed in the fur hats worn by Hasidic males when the violence occurred. Garina lives in Bedford-Stuyvesant, less than a mile away. Police are still looking for a man caught on camera targeting a Brooklyn church in a disturbing display of vandalism. The suspect is seen urinating on two statues outside Our Lady of Consolation Church before smashing the sculptures to the ground. The Hate Crimes Task Force is looking for the man and asking anyone with information to contact Crime Stoppers at 800-577-TIPS, or you can send a text to CRIMES, then enter TIP 577. Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio hosted his annual Christmas luncheon where scholarship money is raised for students to attend Catholic schools. Guests were treated to a special performance too. Currents News' Tim Harfman has the story from Russo's on the Bay in Howard Beach.
'Tis the season for Christmas lunches for a good cause. Along with raising money for scholarships and youth ministry programs, Bishop DiMarzio also taking time to acknowledge members of the faithful for their dedication to the church. Catholic school students singing Christmas hymns to put people in the holiday spirit at Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio's annual Christmas luncheon.
This is kind of opening the Christmas season. We always have it at the beginning of December. It's a beautiful way of starting Advent. We're looking forward to Christmas.
It's a festive fundraiser to support the diocese's Catholic Foundation and create new scholarships for Catholic schools.
The Catholic Foundation does what it can to support the spiritual welfare of a parish. We give out grants to the parishes. We help with youth ministry and, of course, scholarships.
Bishop DiMarzio also acknowledging members of the faithful for their contributions to the church. Joseph Esposito, who spent 45 years with the NYPD, reaching the rank of chief of the department, and later headed the city's Office of Emergency Management. He says faith plays a vital role in life.
It means so much to me. You know, the Catholic Church, Catholic education did so much for my career, my life. If it wasn't for my 12 years of Catholic education, I would not be standing here.
Also being honored, Monsignor Alfred Lapinto, CEO of Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens. Through many programs, Catholic Charities helps nearly 100,000 people living in the diocese.
If it's a way of honoring Catholic Charities and the work we do at Charities, then it's all worthwhile.
And Sister Tisa Fitzgerald, Executive Director of Our Children, a home in Long Island City, Queens, helping formerly incarcerated women reconnect with their families and society.
It's a recognition of the mothers and children that I work and really privileged to work with, and the good that they have done with their lives, that we only are there to support them. And it's really the call of the gospel.
A time for holiday cheer while showing recognition and support for future generations. And today's event raised $500,000 for scholarships and youth ministry initiatives. Nearly 24,000 children attend the Catholic academies of Brooklyn and Queens, and there are nearly 90 parishes with youth ministry programs. You can also help. Go online to the Catholic Foundation of Brooklyn and Queens at cfbq.org and click Donate Now. In Howard Beach, Queens, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
A developing story that could impact immigrants in the diocese and around the world. Pope Francis's top advisor, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, will attend a major UN summit on migration in Morocco next week. The pontiff has been a driving force behind an agreement that will be signed at the summit, calling for worldwide reforms of migration policies. Ann Gallagher heads the International Catholic Migration Commission.
Throughout history, this is one area of international regulation where we haven't been able to see progress. This truly is the first time that the international community has come together and attempted to develop a framework of cooperation.
In 2017, there were 258 million international migrants, making up 3.4% of the global population. The NYPD is getting more eyes, this time in the sky. New York's finest unveiled a fleet of drones Tuesday. Officials say the unmanned aircraft will be used in hostage situations, search and rescues, and crowd monitoring. But civil liberty critics say this could violate citizens' privacy. Top NYPD officials say the department has policies in place to protect the rights of people. There's a lot more news headed your way. Major moments in history now adorn St. Patrick's Cathedral. The stories behind the busts are coming up. A highly anticipated summit at the Vatican to tackle clerical sex abuse is drawing near. A preview with national correspondent Christopher White. And a major obstacle is facing parents who want to have children in the U.S. Details of the challenges are ahead. And do you have a story idea, something happening in your parish we should know about? We want to hear from you. Keep this email handy, newstips@desalesmedia.org. We'll be right back. For the first time ever, 4 popes are memorialized inside St. Patrick's Cathedral. Now on display, the busts of the pontiffs who made history when they visited New York. Currents News' Emily Druby has that story.
Pope Paul VI, Pope John Paul II, Pope Benedict XVI, and Pope Francis. These new papal busts will greet the millions of people a day who visit St. Patrick's Cathedral.
They look beautiful.
The bronze busts, a tribute to the 4 popes to have visited St. Patrick's Cathedral, were crafted by local sculptor Carolyn Palmer.
Each one has their heart coming through. I tried to portray their hearts coming through.
To best capture their likeness, Palmer spent hours studying them.
I start by researching lots and lots of photos, and I have videos, and I then enlarge the photos on walls and in my studio, and I watch them. I watch each person and how they spoke and their sensitivities.
From their eyes to the crosses they wear around their necks.
Each one is, I designed the cross to actually, sculpted the cross to actually match each pontiff, and I did a lot of research on that to see which one they wore the most.
The busts are located in the vestibules right off of 5th Avenue and are about 8.5 feet off the ground.
I designed them to be looking down and facing left and right, depending on the parishioners coming in or guests coming in and guests leaving.
The busts took 2 years to complete, weigh about 250 pounds each, and sit upon marble shelves. Pope Paul VI and Pope John Paul II greet visitors in the south vestibule, while Pope Benedict XVI and Pope Francis can be found in the north vestibule. The busts honor the historic visits of these 4 popes to America's church, St. Patrick's Cathedral. This includes Pope Paul VI's historic visit to the cathedral in 1965, which was the first time a sitting pope visited the Western Hemisphere. In Manhattan, Emily Druby, Currents News.
This morning, Pope Francis sounded a warning for world leaders. The Holy Father saying the danger of the leader is to end up being a hostage of the people. He pointed out that Jesus never let himself be carried away by fame and success.
Che un pericolo dei leader attaccarsi troppo alla gente, non prendere distanza. Gesù se ne accorge e non finisce ostaggio della gente.
The Pope recalled that after performing great miracles, Christ sought solitude in prayer. In a few weeks, the Holy Father will hold a summit with the bishops who lead all the dioceses in the world. The goal is to tackle the clerical sexual abuse crisis. National correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, Christopher White, is here to tell us what we can expect from this highly anticipated Vatican meeting. Christopher, highly anticipated indeed. What do we know so far at this point about the February meeting?
Liz, a lot is riding on this, and so what we know is that 180 approximately bishops from around the world, the heads of their own bishops' conferences in their respective countries, are going to be coming to Rome February 21st through the 24th, and it's going to be an intensive, 3 to 4 day period together in which, the faithful around the world are really hoping for serious action on clerical sex abuse.
And the strategizing is about to begin, right? Next week there's a planning meeting and it's going to be held at the Vatican. Right. Who's participating in this and what do they hope to achieve with this particular meeting?
So just a few weeks ago, Pope Francis announced who the planning committee would be, and it's Cardinal Blaise Cupich of Chicago, Archbishop Charles Cicluna of Malta, Cardinal Oswald Gracias from India, and Father Hans Zollner, a Jesuit who works on sex abuse reform. So they're sort of spearheading this meeting, and it's time to coincide with the C9, which is the Pope's sort of Council of 9 advisory members and their quarterly meeting. So what do we know? Well, we don't know exactly what they're going to come up with, but what we're thinking is that from that meeting, perhaps we're going to get an agenda for what the February summit is going to look like, so that some sort of structure begins to take place so that we can then begin to sort of know what to expect.
Based on how much you've been reporting this, what kind of proposals can we expect might be on that agenda?
Well, as I've talked to a number of people, some that are involved in the planning process, and here are a few things that we know that are sort of in the rumor mill, at least for possible agenda slots. Of course, bishops are expected to have the chance to hear from survivors of sex abuse themselves. Other experts are expected to be there. There's talk of a public penance service that would start things off. And most people suspect that either at the beginning, the end, or both, Pope Francis himself, who is expected to be there the entire time, will address the bishops and say, these are, my marching orders for how I want the church to address this issue going forward. Whether it's a summit, whether it's a meeting, whether it's a strategizing session, people are always looking for these concrete answers. Can we expect any concrete takeaways from this gathering? I think the most serious takeaway that people are looking for is bishops' accountability. If you remember when the bishops were in Baltimore just last month, that they were asked to wait on voting for new standards until after the February summit. So I think that's what most people are expecting, some sort of new protocol that they can take home and begin to implement at home.
All right, Christopher, thank you so much for that preview. The cost of raising children in the U.S. is becoming a major obstacle for families. A new study from the American Family Survey finds that the cost of raising a family today is not affordable for many people. The survey examined 3,000 Americans and their attitudes towards marriage and family life. Of those with children, 3/4 say concerns about their financial stability is impacting their decision to have more children. More than half of those who do not have kids at home say they were worried about paying their bills. Still to come on Currents News, a big sign of the season shows up in Grand Army Plaza. We'll tell you all about the Christmas tree. A World War II vet's big wish for his 96th birthday, and you could help him. We'll be right back. The Brooklyn Diocese Christmas tree has arrived in Grand Army Plaza. The tree was delivered from Vermont this morning and set up with the help of the Parks Department. Standing at over 30 feet tall and weighing in at over 3,000 pounds, the tree will be decorated in anticipation for the annual tree lighting ceremony next week. The tree will be lit by Brooklyn Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio on Tuesday, December 11th at 5 p.m. at the Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Arch in Grand Army Plaza. All parishioners from all over Brooklyn and Queens are invited to attend. A World War II veteran in California says he just wants one thing for his upcoming 96th birthday: letters in the mail, birthday cards from anyone who will send them. Nicole Comstock has more.
Getting mail is so mundane.
Every day says, "Oh, have you checked the mail?"
You might forget how it feels.
To get something in the mail that's for him, that's special.
For those who don't get it.
Not very often.
All my friends are gone.
Dwayne Sherman is soon to be 96 years old.
You do not look 96 years old. I swear to you.
I sometimes feel it.
And he doesn't feel much like celebrating his birthday this December 30th.
Nah.
Or at least he didn't.
No gifts, please.
Until his daughter Sue Morse went to Facebook and asked anyone out there listening to send him a birthday card.
I wanted him to feel special on his birthday.
Well, it'll be heartwarming.
Sue's dad isn't just special to her. He means something to this country. The World War II Navy veteran earned a Purple Heart for a historic mission he survived in 1944. He was a chief sonar man aboard the USS Lamson, and he remembers the moment a kamikaze plane hit his ship.
The flames from the crash engulfing the bridge.
30 of his shipmates lost their lives in that action, and Dwayne still has shrapnel in his back.
We should all be very proud of their service and honor them in any way that we can.
You can call this a happy birthday or a thank you for your service.
Oh, I have a hell of a time reading them.
Either way, Dwayne will have a good time opening up the mailbox.
Probably put them in a box and save them for next year.
And if you would like to send Dwayne a birthday card, and I hope you do, you can address it to Dwayne Sherman in care of Sue Morse at P.O. Box 794, Highland, California, 92346. Thank you so much for your service, Dwayne, and happy birthday. That is Currents News. I'm Liz Faublas, and as always, thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. I hope to see you again next time.